Welcome to Mystery Date, where we dive into the weird, the wild, and the downright puzzling. While our podcast is primarily for entertainment with plenty of laughs along the way, we occasionally discuss serious and sensitive topics. Some content may not be suitable for all listeners, so discretion is advised.
Off the beaches of Gallipoli, there was no buried treasure, only heat, thirst, and the clatter of rifle fire. Yet, on the 12th of August, 1915, something else vanished into the haze. A band of British territorials, many of them gardeners, grooms, and gamekeepers, from King George V's Sandringham estate, pushed forward through scrub and smoke into the Turkish lines and never came back. At home, rumors swirled. Had the Norfolk lads marched into a mysterious cloud and disappeared? Were they abducted by aliens? Executed by the enemy? A dispatch from General Ian Hamilton fanned the flames by declaring that 16 officers and 250 men vanished into the forest and were lost to sight and sound. Families waited, newspapers speculated, and the king himself demanded answers. Was this the strangest missing persons case of the First World War? Or a heartbreaking example of the fog of war? This week, we lace up our boots, grab our rifles, and march into the tragic, myth-laden story of the vanishing of the 5th Battalion.
I'm Christian.
I'm Kate. Welcome to Mystery Date.
It's date night, meaning we get to talk about all things mysterious and weird.
This season is called Into the Woods, and it involves mysteries surrounding woods, Joris.
Joris.
It involves mysteries surrounding woods, forests, and jungles all around our world.
Tonight's mystery is all about the missing 5th Battalion, or the Norfolk Regiment.
Get comfy, grab your favorite drink, and let's start the show.
Yeah, we're back to actual alcohol. So this is Peach Bellini. So we'll see how good the episode stays.
Love my cheap Aldi alcohol, man.
No, dude, for real. If you guys need wine, just go to Aldi. It's like, this was like $4.
Yeah. There's multiple lines in the show Parks and Rec that reference how, like, $5 wine is the same as $500 wine. People are like, I'll take the cheapest one because I can't tell the difference.
Yeah,
Or,
exactly.
if you spend more than $6 on a bottle, that's stupid.
And this was, I think, like $4.39. So
Yep.
we're right in that bracket.
And it's yummy.
It's delicious. All right. Had you ever heard of this mystery before? Diving right in.
Nope. I've heard of Gallipoli and that part of World War One.
Okay.
But-
Well, yeah, because we watched
but-
that
yeah.
documentary, that TV show that was about it. It was like historical,
Yeah,
pretty much. I don't think
yeah.
it was all based on.
I think some of it was like based on truth, but it wasn't a documentary or a biopic
No,
per se.
no,
It
but that
was
was good.
more historical fiction. But yeah, that was very good.
Yeah, it was like a mini series a while ago, I think. But
I don't even know what we watched that on. It
Tubi,
was
I think.
okay. I was like, it was like not one of the main streaming services.
No, I think it was
I knew
Tubi.
that. But yeah, that was good.
Well, we're heading back to Gallipoli then for this. But to start out the mystery, we're going to learn a little bit about World War I. And we're not going to dive too deep into it. We all know what the main conflict or what a little bit of what was going on at this time. So we're just going to kind of gloss over what we need to know to get to Gallipoli.
And hey, if you don't know, go look it up and do some research.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're listening to a podcast right now. Go listen
Yeah.
to a World War I podcast. There are
Go-
tons of them out there.
Learn about history.
It's fascinating. Honestly, I love World War I. That is not my favorite war as in like, oh, everything, like that was so great.
Yeah, not I love World War One as in like, yay, I love war, but
No.
like just as a historian, nerd,
Yes.
war, army nerd kind of person.
Yeah, out of all of the
Interesting.
ones that I've researched, World War I is just the most fascinating to me. And that's because it was really at a time when technology was changing for a lot of these people. But let's dive into it. When World War I broke out in 1914, the call to arms echoed through cities, villages, and royal estates alike. Among those who answered were the men of the Norfolk Regiment, a British territorial force unit drawn largely from the county of Norfolk and, most famously, from the royal estate at Sandringham. These weren't just volunteers. These were gardeners, gamekeepers, clerks, and farmhands. Many of them were personally known to King George V. So these were pretty, I wouldn't say important people, unfortunately, in the hierarchy of the Parliament, but they were known to the royal family. They were the people that took care of the royal family, took care of the grounds of the royals and things like that. That's mostly what this regiment was made out of.
Okay, so it wasn't just random local farmers or people they went and gathered off the streets. It was like the king's and parliament or palace's personal
Workers, essentially, yeah.
Like workforce. Okay.
Yeah. There were others that were part of it, but mostly it was made up of these Sandringham folks from the royal force. So the Sandringham Company, officially part of the 5th Battalion Norfolk Regiment, became something of a poster child for patriotic duty. These men joined up with an idealistic fever, likely believing the war would be over by Christmas, but spoiler alert, it wouldn't be. And their story wouldn't end in victory or even in death as we normally understand it. Because for over 250 of them, the final chapter in Gallipoli would become one of the most fascinating mysteries of the First World War. So to understand the battalion's disappearance, we need to first set the stage of where we're at in Gallipoli. So by 1915, the Western Front in Europe had become a meat grinder. The British High Command, in their infinite military wisdom, cough, cough, just desperation at this point, they're trying anything they can, just throwing shit at walls. They decided to try a new front to break the stalemate that has kind of fallen upon the war. And this leads us to the Dardanelles. The plan was to take the Gallipoli Peninsula, march on Istanbul, and knock the Ottoman Empire out of the war. It's pretty simple when you write it on paper, but actually executing this was way harder than the British command really ever thought. So, in practice, this turned out to be a logistical nightmare. The British underestimated the Ottomans and overestimated their own planning skills. They threw thousands of troops, many poorly trained, into one of the worst planned campaigns of the entire war. The Gallipoli landings in April 1915 were a disaster. By August, Allied troops were bogged down in brutal trench warfare with little to show after months of fighting. And add into this mess, the 5th Norfolks were thrown. So, who were the 5th Norfolks? We'll kind of dive into a little bit of a deeper edge to this battalion. The 5th Battalion Norfolk Regiment wasn't a typical military unit. While technically part of the British territorial force, it was largely composed of volunteers and men who had day jobs as, like we said earlier, gardeners, gamekeepers, clerks, and laborers. But what made them unique was their home turf. Many of them came from the royal estate at Sandringham in Norfolk and were personally known to King George V. This group was nicknamed the Sandringham Company, and it was the monarch's owned workforce turned into a fighting force. So it's hard to imagine now, but these were the men who clipped the royal hedges, polished the palace floors one week, and then trained for trench warfare the next. When the war broke out in 1914, the king was one of the first to encourage patriotic service, and his household followed suit. These men were viewed not only as loyal subjects, but as a sort of symbolic family to the king and the queen at the time. The king and the queen were known to have a very sentimental attachment to the Norfolk Regiment, which is kind of cool to hear about. They weren't just like, these are the people that are going to go fight for us, whatever. They actually had a really big pride for the fact that these royals were interested and wanted to give their life for the Brits.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's just patriotism. They're like, hey, there's a war happening. Now is the time to stand for your country and your king and come together. And so when their people did that, it was probably like, oh my gosh, and we didn't even have to order them all to.
Yeah, and your personal people too.
It.
Like the ones who
Yeah.
could have probably got swept under the rug of this all when it came to being drafted into this war. They probably had an easy way out of that, but instead they went to the front lines and said, no, we're going to go. So I think that says a lot, if anything, about this group of men. So what they lacked in professional military training, they made up for in enthusiasm. The 5th Battalion was infused with Edwardian optimism and stiff upper lip duty. They believed in the glory of the Empire and the righteousness of the cause, because of course everybody did at this time. This wasn't exclusive to just England. All of the countries that were getting ready or actively fighting in World War I had a big surge of patriotism at the time. But it's cool, again, to just see these little pockets of stories of how they unfolded throughout the different countries. I mean, we have Desmond Doss as kind of a familiar story to that type of patriot. That's World War II, but still that type of patriotism that leads up to things like this. And it's cool to see it globally. So when the 5th Battalion arrived at Gallipoli in August 1915, morale was cautiously high, unfortunately. The British High Command believed that they could finally turn the tide against the Ottomans with a very decisive push. And this push would happen at Suvla Bay. For the men of the Sandringham Company, it was their first real combat assignment that they'd ever been assigned. So again, they were all pretty eager to get into this. Their uniforms were crisp, their buttons were polished, and some still carried handwritten letters from the royal household. One officer, Captain Frank Beck, had been the estate land agent and was widely respected among both nobles and villagers. He personally led his men into the battlefield just as he once led them across the grounds of Sandringham. I mean, he was the one who organized them all back home when they were just doing their daily jobs. Now that they're out on the field, it's the same man they follow.
Smart. Keep the chain of command.
Exactly. I mean, and you know that these men are already going to kind of have a
Yeah, they've
sort of a
already got
brotherhoodly attitude
kind
toward
of
him.
a respect and a leadership dynamic established.
Yeah.
So easy enough to transition. Right? I mean, hey, everyone at this time was going from normal person to soldier
Oh, yeah.
in overnight.
No, I mean, it all adds up. And like you said, it's just easy to keep the chain of the command. The Sandringham Company were ill-prepared for what lay ahead. They had spent much of their training on British soil, drilling with limited equipment, and had little exposure to live combat scenarios. The terrain of Gallipoli was also nothing like the manicured lawns of Norfolk. It was rugged, dry, and baking under the Mediterranean sun. Disease also ran rampant, water was scarce, and flies swarmed everything, including the wounded and the dead, which were just scattered throughout the entire area that you were in. But perhaps the most disorienting thing was this. They weren't just battling the Ottomans, they were battling the active landscape around them, the logistics, and the lethal incompetence of their own chain of command. Still, the men of Sandringham pushed forward with determination, and their deployment was seen as a patriotic duty but also as a public relations moment. I mean, imagine it. The king's own staff fighting shoulder to shoulder with the everyman, taking up arms for Britain in her time of need. It was a tidy little narrative until they disappeared. Which brings us to August 12th, 1915, or the charge into oblivion. So August 12th, 1915 dawned hot and heavy with dust. The 5th Battalion Norfolk Regiment, along with other units in the 163rd Brigade, was ordered to advance across the Antfarta Plain as part of a broader Allied push. The offensive was chaotic from the start. You had conflicting orders, poor maps, and a general confusion plagued the operation. And it didn't help that the senior command structure was essentially just winging it. British commanders had little first-hand understanding of the terrain and even less communication with the frontline units. So they were essentially just running blind operations here.
And remember, they might have respect and camaraderie with each other, but they don't really know anything about war logistics.
No, or how this war has been going.
How to execute their plans, even if it all sounds great on paper. Again, they've never even been to the place that they're fighting in now, and it's like, okay, we all our maps are wrong. We don't actually know how to survive in this climate.
No, we can't even communicate to the
Yeah.
guys back at the tent.
Yeah, we thought we would have some better communication. We thought there would be fewer enemies over here. Like, what do you do?
Yeah. No, it was just a shit show, essentially. I mean, and it's kind of sad. I was saying is how nice it is and patriotic it is that they all went, and I still think that, but it does kind of suck when you're probably a frontline soldier who's been there for, I don't know, a week, even a week or so, a little bit of time, who's seen active combat, and then you see all these men coming in from Sandringham, and you know who they are, and they get all this respect almost immediately out the gate from everybody back home, and they haven't seen an inch of combat.
And you also know they probably aren't equipped for it.
Yeah. Mentally and physically.
Yeah.
Sorry. The terrain in Gallipoli was nightmarish. Imagine trying to navigate dry ravines, shrub-covered slopes, and temperatures that melted morale and metal alike. And these soldiers just marched and kept marching. And they were wearing heavy wool uniforms, choking on dust stirred up by the feet of these thousands of other men. The heat simmered over the battlefield, distorting distance and direction. Water was scarce, flies were everywhere, and exhaustion was already sitting in before the order to advance even came in. At the head of the 5th Norfolks was Lieutenant Colonel Sir Horace Proctor Beauchamp, a career officer with a title grander than the plan that he was handled. A career officer with a title grander than the plan he was handed. His orders were vague at best. Push forward, engage the enemy, and clear the woods. There were no detailed objectives, no coordinated artillery support, just a general, hey, go that way and fight.
Over there and like make sure it's clear.
Cause a little bit of a stir.
And then let us know.
Yeah, so that's the shit they're dealing with right now.
Yeah, imagine you hear there's a war going on. You're like, I'm going to go fight to protect my country, to fight for my king's name. I'm so excited to be a patriot, to put an end to all this. The war to end wars. Yay, Britain. And you show up and they're like, all right, sir, what do you want us to do? We're here to help. We want to save the day. Why don't you guys head out to that forest over there and just, I don't know, start killing people if you see them. And then the coast looks safe. Go ahead and give us a thumbs up. You're like, what?
Really? That's all we get?
That's the plan?
And that was the plan, and so they did it. At approximately 4 p.m., Beauchamp's men formed up and moved out in an extended line formation. And this was a military tactic meant to reduce the impact of enemy fire and allow for a little bit of flexibility between the line. The Norfolks advanced across open ground towards a thin stretch of woods to the east of a dry riverbed. Reports from nearby units said they saw the regiment press forward, engaging small groups of retreating Ottoman troops, all normal. And then came a critical mistake, if it was a mistake at all. Somewhere during the maneuver, the 5th Norfolks either failed to receive the command to halt, or they chose to press on beyond their operational boundary. Accounts differ on this. Some say Beauchamp, believing he could capture a strategic grove, led the charge deeper into a wooded ravine, but others say that the battalion lost contact with the brigade and command just failed to give them the signal to stop their advance, and they simply just kept going. Either way, though, they vanished. Not metaphorically, literally. One moment they were visible on the field advancing into the trees, and the next they were gone. No flashes of musket fire, no wounded staggering back, no stretcher bearers, just silence. It was as if the earth swallowed them whole. The units advancing beside them, some of whom had only just landed at the bay days earlier, reported seeing dust clouds and brief skirmishes to their right, but nothing unusual. By sundown, when the Allies pulled back and attempted to regroup, the 5th Norfolks were missing in their entirety. And when the roll was called that evening, the result was chilling. Of the 267 men who charged with Beauchamp into the shrubs and woodland, not a single one returned. No wounded ever made it back, and no corpses were immediately found. No prisoners were reported by the Turks, and even their weapons and equipment, usually scattered across the battlefield, were nowhere to be seen. Theories flew fast and pretty loose, as they do. Had they been encircled and slaughtered, taken prisoner and marched off in secret, ambushed and obliterated in just one fell swoop? Or was it something stranger? In a war where death was meticulously cataloged, where even unidentified corpses had tag numbers, the total disappearance of an entire company was unprecedented. It wasn't just a military loss. This was a historical anomaly, and it set the stage for decades of speculation, grief, and ghost stories.
Fun stuff.
Yeah. So what do you think about that?
I mean, I do think there are a lot of plausible possibilities that, yes, a lot of, everything was very meticulously documented, like you said. But also, it's a time of war. And we're supposed to just take the enemy's word for it when they say they don't have any of our prisoners right now. Like, there's no way they would ever lie about something like that, right? In the middle of a war? Impossible. They always mark down their prisoners and kills. Yeah, unless they want to distract you with something new so they can take more prisoners and make more kills.
So what do you think happened?
I think it was probably something like that, where they were ambushed or captured, and then their weapons weren't lying around because they were taken by whoever ambushed or captured them. Same with their uniforms or tags. Like, I just feel like bodies not being discovered could be either because they were captured somewhere and then the government's just lied about it and whatever. It was like, nope, we don't have them. We don't have your people. But they do, and they're just in some work camp or like secret cave dungeon somewhere.
Yeah.
Who knows? In a lab, even. It was the World Wars, people. There was some weird experimenting going on.
Yes, there was.
In various countries. Whether you want to say good guys or bad guys, everybody had a hand in some fucked up shit. Like, so, and again, you really think that the enemy is gonna be honest about that? Like, oh yeah, we took your guys and we're currently experimenting on them like lab rats to come up with new tear gas things to kill you with in the next battle. Like, I
see that.
I feel like that's probably what happened.
But
and
what
that's
about,
why there was no evidence, because they were taken.
What about the first-hand accounts that are like, no, I literally saw, like, there are people marching in with this battalion that are part of a different battalion that are like, I saw them to my right. And then 20 minutes later, that entire battalion was just gone.
And they said it was so dusty. They could barely see, they could barely breathe. It was hot. People were exhausted. They probably aren't spending the entire time marching forward, keeping an eye on the battalion miles that way. That
they did. Yeah, you're right. They did go forward too, more than anybody else was supposed to.
And they're probably, each unit is probably more focused on their individual group than the one. Like, it's like, okay, yeah, you can still see them. All right, cool. Yeah, you can still see them. Cool. Anyway, so what are we doing? Like, you're focused on the immediate more than you're focused on the outside. And tons of dust clouds. They're heading into the woods. The second you get past some tree cover, it's harder to see where the people are at.
She said it. She said the season title.
Like, they're going down a ravine. Okay, of course you're seeing people along the horizon, and then they go into some trees and downwards. Guess what? From a distance, with heat rays, totally looks like they vanish.
Okay.
It's almost like Mother Nature is cool and creates mirages and optical illusions.
So you think this was just kind of an... I'm not against you. I'm just like summarizing, trying to like rep. So you think this is essentially mismanagement because they went on farther than they were supposed to for whatever fucking reason.
Mismanagement / miscommunication.
Well, and also mismanagement into, like, you brought up mirages. I can see that being a good theory too, because it's like what we were describing. This is a harsh environment, and by the time these men even started marching, they were already exhausted.
probably facing some heat stroke symptoms, maybe dehydration, possibly just literal exhaustion from having not slept much, trying to navigate this terrain and trying to find safe places to camp out. Their morale is going down because they showed up really patriotic and ready to go and then quickly found out nobody here knows what the fuck they're doing. And I sure hope we have a chance. Like, so I really, I know I'm always the skeptic of the podcast, but I'm like, okay, come on, guys, really? They were there and then they just weren't. It had to have been aliens. Like, it's a war, man.
Well, I will say though, even what you're stating, even if it wasn't aliens, that's only one theory we have here. We have a lot that we're going to cover.
Oh, I'm sure.
But what you're stating is still technically a conspiracy theory, because the Ottoman government has not stated to this day, or I believe the Ottomans have.
The Ottoman Empire is still an active government, babe.
But okay, what I'm saying is nobody has taken responsibility.
What if it was some, for lack of a better, more accurate word of World War I British terminology, black ops?
What you're stating is still technically a conspiracy, and which makes this an interesting mystery. It's like, why was it so top secret to take an entire regiment during a march instead of fighting and defending your homeland, which is not saying they're losing, but they're not winning.
Maybe it wasn't even the Ottomans or the Turks. There was other people fighting in World War I too.
I mean, yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's still some spicy stuff that comes
like
into.
It didn't have to be the enemy they thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of nations involved in World War I, and not just nations like in the organized this country versus this country kind of way. But I mean, think about just today in America. It's not just America versus the world, right? It's like, okay, well, you've got a billion different political views in every village in America. Some people believe this way, some people believe that way, some people want to fight that way. I mean, we've got 18 different levels of military and police just here, some of which are very top secret levels.
Oh, yeah.
And you have non-government entities and like what we would call militias. Those still exist, especially if you go back just a handful of decades, like during the 60s and 70s. There was a lot of just common man formed militias.
I mean, you don't even have to go to militias. Like, a good modern day take on that is security, like for hire, security contractors. If you have enough money, you can hire an army to follow you around on the streets. They're not loyal to anybody.
That's what I'm saying.
Money, yeah.
Like,
that's a good modern equivalent to like the militias that were formed, because not many people are forming militias or doing things like that.
But I mean, hey, there was an insurrection.
No, you're right. It still does happen. Yep.
I would call that
was a
vague militia.
Yeah, I will say that was something.
So, like, there's definitely still groups. I mean, I'm pretty sure the fucking KKK still exists.
They do.
Unfortunately.
Boo. On the record, boo.
Boo. But I'm just saying, like, it might not have been the Turks. It might not have been the Ottomans. It might not have been the Germans. It might not have been the Brits. Like, maybe it was just some guys who lived in the area and said, fuck all the governments and militaries fighting it out on my farmland. Let's go kidnap some of these bitches.
Yeah.
Like, it could have very well been like some secret or unofficial circumstance.
No,
like,
you're kind of hitting where I'm.
But like
gonna
that's
land,
what I
think.
believe. I think either officially or unofficially, government or not, an enemy captured them and took them to do something probably fucked up that they wouldn't want to admit later on to. And then when it was over, they were like, let's let this go away quietly. Hopefully everything is just buried and done with. And by the time people come around to try to ask more questions, we'll all be dead anyway.
Yeah.
And that's probably what happened.
All right. No, I just wanted to ask because that part is that's the story. There's more that I have written and more to the story, but like that is the mystery, I should say, of everything leading up to that point. Everything from now on is going to be theories and the recovery efforts that were made, but we're going to get into it. But I just wanted to hear because that was back in 1914 or 1915. That's all the people got at home. So it's like, what were they thinking? That's when this was an old conspiracy theory, essentially.
Yeah, it is interesting to picture someone at home in 1914 coming up with conspiracy theories like about, I mean, any of this, but specifically like the fact that, of course, somebody's like, what if it was aliens?
Well,
Like, imagine 100 and some years ago, people are sitting at home with their basically brand new electricity, let alone the technology that
honestly,
we have. Like,
most of them aren't even at home with technology. They're any electricity at this point.
yeah, like
They still have wells. They run on like
things were
candlelight
rural,
and kerosene. Like just
yeah.
we don't know.
In the biggest city, like compared to today, things were rural.
Yeah.
So just picturing people of that time like coming up with wild conspiracy theories like people do today is funny. There's always been fun podcasts. They just weren't always recorded for your entertainment.
I would love to hear people from 1915 start a conspiracy podcast because Roswell didn't even happen yet. They didn't even know, like, the term flying saucer didn't exist. Most alien encounters and stuff like that weren't seen as aliens by the sense at this point. So
it was just unknown scary.
I do wonder what they were coming up with.
Yeah.
I mean, most of it was probably propaganda stuff. Like, unfortunately, just, the Turks did something they did something.
Just fuel the war.
Yeah.
Fuel the war machine, baby.
But still, for the people back at Norfolk, I mean, I can't imagine.
Oh, yeah, these poor people's families.
You know nothing.
Friends,
I know. I'm not saying that it's good if your family member died, but at least you get the closure.
At least if you have the information and you know it's over. You carry your grief forever, but the moment has ended. You don't have to carry that what happened.
Yeah.
Forever. Never, ever getting an answer or closure.
And I mean, there's 290.
267.
Yeah, 200. I wanted to make sure I got the number right. 267 people. So that's 267 families back home that have no answers. They're just told they disappeared into the woods. We have no bodies. We have no dog tags. We have no confirmation of where their body might be. They're just gone.
That's like if my entire high school vanished.
Yeah. To put that in perspective, like that's
we went to a small
we did,
school,
yeah, and that's not
mind
normal,
you.
but
that's not average size. We went to a very small school. Like my graduating class had like 28 or 30 people.
It's average. No.
But still, it was like, dude, we had like 300 students in the whole building.
So I mean, imagine just all of them disappearing and then all of their family members only being told we have no idea what happened.
They vanished into the woods. Like, that's it?
And
that's all we get?
A lot of these people too, like, yes, most people in our high school, we had a wide variety of ages, but these kids were like 18. A lot of the people going to war at this age, at this time, they were young, patriotic kids getting ready to go fight for something they thought was going to be a fun adventure.
To mention, the king has no staff left now.
Yeah. Ooh. Hey, if you need a job.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Time for the common folk to rise up in society, baby.
You know, a hiring sign went up.
I've been watching too much Bridgerton.
Oh, my God. So back to the story. Now we're going to talk about the recovery, which happened 4 years later.
Naturally, because they had a war to finish first.
Yep. The war finally ended in 1918, but for many families, closure was still out of reach. With over 16 million dead,
I don't know if I've ever heard that number before.
The need to recover, identify, and bury soldiers became an overwhelming humanitarian task. The British government created the Imperial War Graves Commission, or IWGC, and it is now known as the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, to bring dignity and documentation to those who had fallen. Their mission was part spiritual, part logistical. It was to comb the shattered battlefields of Europe and the Middle East, identify the dead, and bury them with honor. In 1919, one of the IWGC working parties began surveying the Gallipoli Peninsula, where the terrain had changed little since the blood-soaked offensive in 1915. Twisted metal and spent shell casings still littered the ground. This was 4 years later. That's just all pretty much just left. That's why these wars are so fascinating to me on a side tangent, is the actual scale of what happened during these times
The cleanup.
is unfathomable. It's just wild. Yeah, it really is. Bones were common, and so were unmarked graves. So while they were searching, near the village of Anafarta, they found it. It was a mass grave roughly 800 yards from the front line where the 5th Norfolks had reportedly vanished. Inside the shallow trench were the remains of 180 men, many still wearing uniform remnants, and a handful of rifles beside them, some with rusted bayonets still affixed. Their placement was haphazard. There was no rows, no markers, and no ceremonial burial. It looked like somebody had dumped them and moved on, and maybe they had. Among the bones, one officer was positively identified by personal effects and uniform insignia. You know who that was? Yes, it was Lieutenant Colonel Sir Horace Proctor Beauchamp. The presence of their commander confirmed what the War Office had long feared but never formally acknowledged. This was, in all likelihood, the Sandringham Company. But, well, I was just about to say, but the grave only deepened the mystery. Why was it located so far from the coordinates where the battalion had last been seen advancing? Some reports placed the What?
It sounded like you said where they were last seen dancing. Now I'm picturing a group of soldiers marching into battle, and suddenly they start dancing into the woods and never to be seen.
I mean, maybe they did. That cannot be confirmed
I mean, hey,
that can't be confirmed.
That's how the Salem witch trials started, with rumors that girls were dancing naked in the woods.
Maybe one day we'll cover the dancing plague.
Oh, I would love to cover the dancing plague.
No, why were they located so far from where they were advancing? Some reports placed the Norfolks nearly a mile away from this site during their final known maneuver. So what happened? I mean,
people, a mile is not that far. They were literally an advancing troop. Everybody confirmed it looked like they were advancing further than they were supposed to. Why is it like such a mind-blowing mystery that they're like, but they're a whole mile ahead? Like, I could walk a mile in less than a day. You think they didn't just go another mile?
I mean, yes, but it is strange that you have an advancing force that is supposed to be met with a defending force who is then ushered away from an active battlefield a mile away, where then they're killed. Like, you have two lines.
How do we know they were ushered away and that they didn't just keep walking until they stumbled into that spot? And maybe the enemy was waiting there.
Maybe it's possible, but I have a really hard time, and I'm sure a lot of the people at the War Office had a hard time believing that when you have advancing parallel regiments going like this way, like this is just theoretical, you have two going to the side and you have one in the middle. You would assume that there is a line behind them of defense. So how would one regiment get a mile behind that line while the others struggle to advance at all? Even if they did, and that is what happened, how did they do that?
The enemy lines were set up further down that way.
But the other two on the other sides were...
They were the middle group? I thought they were on the right.
I don't know exactly where their position was, but I know they were surrounded.
Oh, okay.
Like their battle was going...
I just knew someone earlier mentioned they had seen them off to
yes,
the
that
right,
was there.
So.
There was reports from a lot of soldiers from other regiments, like the 1/5 Norfolk and some others right around there. You can actually find quotes from some of them that are like, "No, we saw them." Like that's why it's strange to a lot of these people back at the War Office, because it's like, from all accounts, again, it's not. I agree with you where it's like I don't think aliens or anything
Yeah.
crazy
Well,
happened.
like, again, I'm
But
just
it's just
saying, a
weird.
mile is not that far. Like, yes, it's difficult terrain and it's a big group of people, but they were told, advance that way.
I mean, yeah, but this whole
So
war,
they did. Like,
this whole war, you've had these people though fighting over feet,
that's true.
and then all of a sudden, this regiment was somehow able to get a mile into. It's just strange. Like again,
It is.
I'm siding with you, but also kind of on that tale of like there's something here. So I think that's why the War Office and why a lot of people are like, even if you take aliens or all this crazy stuff out, what the hell happened?
No, and I will grant you that even if it's a very plausible explanation, like what I said earlier, like they were taken for some reason, maybe questioned, and then as they refused to be answering, they were just executed, and it was like maybe they literally were kind of taken as a group. Half of them were murdered, half of them were taken to go be prisoners of war
Yeah.
somewhere. Or like even if it was something like that, I do grant you that, like, okay, it is mysterious that every other aspect of these people's moves and motives was documented, and then this one group just was in secret for some reason.
Yeah.
Like,
And even
that
if it was,
is weird.
even if it was something from like the Turkish or the Ottoman Empire, that's just impressive. So as from the side of the British, you're like, well, we just need to know how the hell they pulled this off.
I
then.
mean, yeah, even if
Like-
it's like, forget about the guys we lost, we
Yeah.
need to be able to pull
yeah, like,
off
how
shit
could,
like that.
how can
We
you
need to
take-
make your battalions vanish. in
literally.
thin
It's
air.
like how can you take our entire battalion and give us no answer? Like what?
I really, like, my gut tells me that there was experimentation happening with new technologies like gases.
Yeah.
It was a very dusty area and hot. And like I said before, heat rays coming off the ground literally distort your vision. They create mirages, especially if you're also exhausted and dehydrated. But like, I really feel like there was just some prisoner of war or mass killing that happened. It was probably like, okay, we're experimenting with this new gas. We see these people coming. Let's try it on them. Those units down there have the defense for the other units coming at them. We're going to try this experiment here and then run and see how it goes. And we'll go back another mile. So if they do advance past the gas, we can fight them there. And they kind of led them further. Gas blends in with dust in the air. People to the left and the right can't tell that that's what's going on. People start dropping like flies because they're just being poisoned or suffocated. Enemy comes back. All right, we got most of them. Looks like some of them scattered. All right, maybe go. I see one over there. Go shoot that guy. And then they're like, all right, let's bury these people before there are other people come back and get their stuff. Like, I just feel like it's a pretty reasonable explanation.
Again, even if that is the explanation, though, that in itself is a conspiracy.
Yeah,
So it's why people talk about it.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I told you, I get that it's weird. It is mysterious. I just don't think it's one of those circumstances where people, like you said, people want closure and they want answers. And if they don't get them, or if they don't get the ones they wanted, the human brain can tell you anything it wants to make you feel better. And if it makes you feel better, you are more likely to believe it, regardless of if it's true. So I think this is one of those circumstances where people they were like, no, they're not dead. They can't be dead. My loved ones can't be dead. The royal family's empire? No way that battalion died. They were the best. It was people not wanting to believe the obvious, most simple answer is usually the correct one. And it was people going, no, nope, they can't be dead. They're just missing. Something happened to them, and we'll figure out what. It's like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, something did happen to them, but I don't think it's as dramatic or as mythical as people want to make it seem. And I think that goes for a lot of mysteries that we talk about, where people often want it to be this very grand, dramatic story. And it's like, okay, guys, it was war. They were killed and buried. That's about it.
Yes. And I'm sure, honestly, I don't have accounts of what many people believed back in the day, but I don't think a lot of their theories were outlandish or this crazy. what could have happened, or we don't want to believe that these royals could have died. I mean, they were missing for 4 years, and they were one of the only regiment to go missing in that fashion
As
in
a
the
whole
entire war.
battalion like that. Yeah.
So you had 4 years of no information and one unprecedented situation.
Well, and you're right. Maybe it wasn't outlandish theories. Maybe it was just
I mean, people.
maybe
they probably
everyone
believed that
had
they were
my
dead.
same theory.
Yeah.
Just very specific about it. They were like, no, my theory is that it was specifically the Ottomans.
Yes.
And they
yes.
specifically used this type of gas or this type of execution or corralling method. Like, it was probably just people getting more and more specific with how
Yes.
they thought it was done.
I think a lot of the more outlandish theories attached to this, which we only talk about one in this episode. All of the other ones are very grounded theories of what could have happened. I think those are more or less stacked on in later generations because of people like us.
Because millennials and their damn podcasts.
Because people listen to podcasts like this that embellish stories,
Yeah.
which we do.
And because we have a culture that goes on Facebook and joins Storm Area 51, they can't stop us all events.
Exactly.
Because we like aliens, damn it.
Well, and it's just, even to today, this event is still mysterious. No one has taken credit for any of this.
I mean, yeah, that's true. You did say that, like, no one to this day has said, I know what happened, or this person was at fault, or
Yeah, no one's taken blame. No one
Yeah.
said we did this. There's been nothing.
so even though it's like, okay, we found a mass grave and found most of their bodies, we still don't really know.
Yeah, we can't even tell you how most of these men died.
Yeah. Or where the rest of them
Yeah.
are.
So that just leaves that little pocket of mystery where, again, people like us in the podcast or entertainment sphere or industry that take these mysteries and kind of fill in holes where we can. And that leads to alien and kind of things like that.
Well, I mean, to be fair, what mystery doesn't
Include aliens.
lead to aliens?
Yes. But no, I do strongly agree with you. And I think a lot of people did at the time too, where they just wanted answers. And because there was no answers to this, it, like many of our other mysteries, just leaves it in this area of
It becomes a rumor
what
mill.
could have happened.
Yeah. It just becomes a rumor mill of people grasping at straws trying to give themselves answers.
Yeah. And even at this point, the men have been recovered. Most of them. Where did the 80 plus missing men go? Because although 180 bodies were found, nearly 90 were still unaccounted for. And these weren't just casualties, they were gone. Again, there was no bones, no ID tags, and no notes from the Ottoman Red Crescent. Just gone. Which, again, that's very unusual. Like you say, you have allies and enemies in war. There's still rules and things set up within war.
What if a bunch of them went AWOL? They seen what was happening and they're like, we are all going to die here. We have to retreat. But they also knew which battalion they were. And they're like, we were told to advance and take out the enemy and clear the way. If I'm not mortally wounded and I come back retreating, I might just get executed by the
they'll just kill
king
you
for
back, yeah.
fleeing his war. Like, so maybe a bunch of them were just like, no, run, go into hiding. My family has to think I'm dead. I don't, like, this is my only option for survival.
And a lot of them maybe were killed and found out about and thrown into this mass, maybe prison camp or
Yeah.
internment camp, and then were killed.
Maybe some of them lived out their days under a fake
In-
name
yeah,
and
in
hiding
Istanbul.
in Istanbul or wherever, in Gallipoli even.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
And again, to say that that's where all of the 80 or 90 remaining people went, I think that's a stretch. I don't think
Yes.
all of them went AWOL. But like,
But no,
I,
it's a
I would
thread.
say that's a fair suggestion that at least a handful of them that could have happened.
Yeah.
I
And
don't know that AWOL is the term they use with,
I'm pretty sure.
with the British
Well,
troops.
I say I'm pretty sure. I don't fucking know. If you know, please let us know. I want to be knowledgeable on
Yeah.
that. That sounds like a good little tidbit to know. But back to the story. For the families back in Norfolk, the discovery brought as many questions as answers. I mean, in public, the War Office maintained that the men had died valiantly in action. But in private, there was a lot of confusion. The burial site showed signs of quick internment, not something the Ottoman army was known for. Had the Turks buried them after a chaotic battle? Had they been pushed into the ravine by retreating soldiers? Or had somebody else moved the bodies post-conflict? Even more unsettling, Turkish military records made no mention of capturing or burying British soldiers in this location. The Ottomans were known for their extensive documentation of enemy prisoners and their dead. So their silence on this site was pretty strange. And that's why the rumors swirled. Had the men been executed and buried secretly? Was this site even the original place of their death, or had the bodies been moved here and then buried later on? Some speculated that the burial was done by local civilians or even other Allied units during a retreat, desperate to clear the field or avoid disease, just to essentially clean up the area. Others whispered of darker possibilities. You had cover-ups, friendly fires, or posthumous dishonor. Even the IWGC seemed unsure of all of this. The grave was marked and documented, but no grand statement was ever issued for years. The discovery was just a footnote in war history, and it was never lit by a spotlight. But for the villagers of Norfolk, it was a wound that never fully healed. Parents and widows who had waited years for news were finally told that yes, their sons and husbands were likely dead, but only some of them. The rest were still missing. And in an era where wartime record keeping was often bureaucratic to a fault, the vagueness surrounding the Norfolk's regiment, it made it just all stand out. It wasn't just another tragedy of war. It was a full-blown mystery with human stakes, royal connections, and far too many unanswered questions. Kind of like I was saying, it's just this weird area that it hangs in where you have all these people left with nothing. And we're left to sat there for years before even being told that, yeah, we did find them. They're dead. Only some of them.
Yeah, because of course the government can't just release that information because they're like, well, we have to try to figure out
what
more
this is
first.
And it's like, guys, you found the fucking lieutenant colonel.
Let's tidy this up and get like all the information before we tell the public anything. We don't want them to get in a frenzy.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But now that we leave the bloodstained battlefields, we're going to dive headfirst into all the theories surrounding this. Our first one we're going to talk about is, like I said, a lot of these are grounded, pretty down-to-earth theories. And this first one is killed in action or lost in the ravine. This is the official party line. The 5th Norfolks advanced too far, got separated from supporting units, and were slaughtered in a Turkish ambush deep in a wooded ravine. It was a hot day, communication was abysmal, and visibility was terrible. So they were outflanked, outnumbered, and overwhelmed. It was a classic military tragedy. A lot of things supporting this theory are that their bodies were found several years later in a mass grave. Some had weapons with them, suggesting they died fighting, and no evidence suggests a mass surrender or survival. But there are problems to this. Like we said before, Turkish records don't corroborate a mass kill at this location. The Ottomans were known for pretty detailed record keeping, and especially when it came to POWs or battlefield victories. And then there's the location discrepancy. The mass grave was found hundreds of yards away from where the 5th Norfolks were last seen, in a direction they weren't even ordered to go.
Oh, I didn't know that part. I thought it was just further ahead.
No, it was 800 yards just off,
like
essentially.
Off to the side where it's like, well, hang on, that wasn't even...
Did they get lost, or were they rerouted without any documentation? Either way, the disappearances were so sudden and complete that it made even other British officers raise an eyebrow at all of this. But again, that's the official line, is they were killed in action. Just lost during that advance.
I mean, I will say that's probably the best, like, public...
Yes.
All right, this is the story we're going to go with. This is the conclusion we're going to tell the families in public. Because, A, they do have, I mean, at least they have most of the bodies in the mass grave. It's a reasonable enough explanation where it's like, it's not a lie.
I mean, at this point, yes.
Yeah,
It's
it's
the truth.
just, we're just not sure on all the details.
It's vague.
Yeah. But also, it kind of lets the family and the country know that, like, hey, they died with honor.
Yes.
They did what they were supposed to do for their country, and it went poorly, and we are sorry for them, but they were true patriots. They died valiantly. Like,
And I do hope for a lot of...
They did give that, at least, to the families.
And I hope that a lot of the families and widows and parents and everyone that got this news, as hard as it would be, did just accept it. Because as much as it sucks to say that, to live with that constant what if is why we have so many theories to this day. But all in all, I hope that they were at least able to accept that reasoning and get that small closure of that your family member died with honor, fighting, doing what they were out there to do.
But it is definitely easier to carry if you have closure and answers and some sort of peace with it.
Yeah.
Than just why, what, how,
when.
no.
Like, literally, you don't even know when. That's
yeah.
what, it's terrifying. You don't even, like, you don't know if they suffered. You don't know if they were POWs. It's just nothing.
As much as it's like, oh, we don't know if this is the full truth, so that sucks that they're telling the families. It's also like probably the best things you could tell the family. Like,
Yeah.
they died fighting the day we lost them. Like,
Yeah.
Because, yeah, what's the alternative?
That's why I'm like,
something
it sucks.
worse, right? It's always something worse.
And I'm like, it sucks to say it, but yeah, I do just hope that they were able to, at least most of them were able to accept that answer and got the tiny bit of closure on this that they could.
You've gotta carry grief as peacefully as you can in life, or it will destroy you.
Yes. The next theory we're going to talk about is that they were executed by the Ottomans. This one has persisted for decades, particularly among the families of those missing, but some believe that the Norfolks were captured alive, taken prisoner, and then executed by Ottoman troops, either in the heat of battle or as an act of retribution. The alleged motive? Well, it was a retaliation for the British use of colonial troops from India, Australia, and New Zealand, something that enraged Ottoman commanders at the time. Executing white British prisoners would have sent a pretty clear message.
The specific battalion that's close to the royals.
Yup. But again, this theory does suffer from a lack of hard evidence.
And again, the Ottomans were usually pretty prideful to claim the shit they'd done. They were like,
yes.
Yeah, that's right. We did take those prisoners of war because we are better than you.
Exactly,
like, it's kind of
yes.
that, like, almost sense of pride with war where it's like, no, we were the winners of this battle. You think we're going to deny that?
History's written by the victors. They're going to write it.
Yeah. So even a lot of the secret underground, black ops, whatever you want to call experimentation that was going on during World War I and World War II, it was all secret and kept under lock at the time. But like today we know about it.
Yeah.
Even their governments today have been like, yes, our government used to do that shit. And that's why we have laws today making sure we don't do it again.
Exactly. A lot of governments have come forward with some of the war crimes or more hideous things that they've done.
Some of the more heinous acts of history.
Yeah, not that they've taken credit for everything, obviously. I mean,
and not that they've taken pride in all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Like I said about the Ottomans, but like they take credit at least, or accountability.
Yes.
I guess is a better word.
Yeah, accountability. Like you said, there's not much evidence that supports this, with the fact that none of the Ottoman records confirm any such executions. And there was no forensic evidence, like bound limbs or gunshot trauma to the back of the head, found on any of the bodies in the 1919 mass grave.
They wanted to have a mass execution to send a message of retribution to the royals. You'd think they would
want them to know
about it.
Yeah.
And not leave it in an air of mystery for several years.
That's literally my next point. And if it was meant to send a message, why hide it?
Yeah. Signed, Anonymous. Find me if you can, Brits.
Some theorists believe a cover-up might have occurred, not by the Turks, but by the British government, who didn't want the public to know that the king's own estate workers were marched off and murdered in pretty much cold blood.
That's fair.
That just throws a whole wrench into the whole thing. I mean, that idea is chilling and impossible to fully disprove. You're never going to be able to say that didn't happen.
That's a fair suggestion of a theory, honestly. We've talked about many a cover-up before.
By the British government so far.
Yeah. I still think Roanoke was a cover-up.
That's what I'm saying.
No.
But that's pretty much it when it comes to the Ottoman theory. After that, the last one we're going to talk about before we get a little off the wall is friendly fire. And let's get brutally honest. The British army at Gallipoli during this time was a fucking mess. Artillery support was uncoordinated, maps were outdated, communication lines broke down constantly, and it's entirely possible that the 5th Norfolks were taken out not by Turkish rifles, but by British shells. In fact, other units in the area later reported errant shelling during the offensive, including reports of shells landing behind their own lines. If the 5th Norfolks advanced too far and were mistaken for Ottoman troops in the smoke and dust, they could have easily been obliterated by their own side.
Especially if they got lost and headed off course a little bit. So instead of heading straight, they headed a little bit to the left and ended up in front of their side battalion.
And you might ask, well, why not admit that? Because admitting that you killed the king's personal staff with a misfired howitzer doesn't look great on a war report.
Pretty much a guaranteed execution for everyone involved by the king himself in a public courtyard for all of the kingdom to cheer on. Like, oh, you, sir, you're the one who slayed my men? Hang him!
Death, yeah.
Like,
The 1919 recovery mission conveniently and quickly labeled their deaths as killed in action. No mention of whose action. It's not hard to imagine that some bureaucratic eraser worked pretty hard behind the scenes to get rid of this.
They're like, well, we know whose action, but that's not important in the documents.
They just died.
We just need to let their families know they're gone, that's all. Who cares?
So that one's pretty compelling to me, to be honest. It combines the cover-up a little bit. It combines logistical just nightmares this was.
And remember, all these people, not only was it a logistical nightmare, they had maps wrong, the environment was crazy, there was no communication. All these people are inexperienced as well. It's not like these were lifelong soldiers and officers. Even the few officers in this battalion, it's like, no, he used to be like the garden leader at the kingdom. Like, he was at the king's palace, like helping corral other employees. He wasn't like, he went from manager of a resort to being an officer of a grand military war scheme. You don't just learn those skills overnight in like one class or like training like boot camp week. So I mean, yeah, it's a very, very plausible explanation, I think.
And you had all these kids, especially, like we always say, we're not historians and I can't confirm nor deny, but everyone was pretty eager to get a kill during this war.
They were kind of excited to go to war and to fight for their country and to kill the enemy.
Yeah, if you're on the back lines like artillerymen were, who aren't getting to see the frontline combat, don't really know what the intensity is or what they're dealing with, all you want to do is get the highest kill streak, as fucked up as it sounds. And you misjudge something. You see a large regiment out in the dust. You think, oh my God, that's 300 I can get with 1, 2, maybe 3 shells. All we got to do is line it up. And that's all it takes. That one's really compelling to me. So the last theory we're going to talk about is the paranormal cloud story, aka time slip fan fiction.
Nice.
This is where things get weird and a little bit fun. But in 1965, a letter was published in Flying Saucer Review. Yes, it's a real publication. It was the 60s.
And what did the letter say?
3 men, allegedly New Zealand engineers stationed on the heights above the battlefield, claimed to have witnessed a pretty bizarre phenomenon. According to their account, they saw the Norfolks march into a strange, low-hanging cloud on the ground. The soldiers vanished into the mist, never to reappear. The cloud then apparently lifted off the earth and floated away, merging with other clouds in the sky. This claim was later picked up by UFO enthusiasts who proposed everything from alien abduction to time travel to portals to another dimension. But let's be clear real quick. There is no independent verification of these witnesses, even their names. Their regiment placement can't be confirmed, and the letter surfaced half a century after the event. Still, though, the idea of a battalion getting raptured by fog that has taken on a life of its own in some paranormal crisis, it's pretty interesting, and some say it might even be a metaphor. Others swear it's a proof of a military time slip event. A little more outlandish side. Either way, though, it does make for a pretty killer campfire story, and if that eyewitness report is to be trusted, that is fucking crazy. This is in that same spot of, yes, we can't confirm it, but we also can't disprove it. We can't say these guys didn't see this.
And there is low hanging clouds and ground fog and things like that that exist.
And if there were aliens, what a pretty fucking good way to hide.
I mean, they have multiple movies about it. You've got The Mist.
Nope.
And you've
Nope
got
was like
The
that.
Fog.
You saw Nope with me, right? You didn't see Nope with the horse and the alien?
No, I wanted to. We were supposed to watch it together, but we never did.
You told me you didn't want to watch it, and I watched it, and then I thought I made you watch it with me afterwards.
I thought I wanted to
This
watch
is on recording now. No, you told me you didn't want to.
Maybe I was afraid.
Yes, I think you were like, that one seems a little too dark for me. Because it wasn't like, you explained to me back then, you were like, Us and Get Out were a lot more psychological, and you were like, this one seems like it's going to be a lot more jump scary and just, kind of conjuring type scares. Which it did kind of fall into that a little more than...
I'm remembering
Yes.
this more.
I was like, I didn't watch this on a turn. I had to find a day you were gone. I wanted to watch this.
I was going to say, I thought I remembered being like, oh, we got to watch that one.
No, we should watch it though if
But-
you're interested. It's a good
okay.
movie. I liked it.
I'm sure I'll like it.
It's odd.
I'm getting better with watching like horror and thriller. Like,
Oh yeah. We're getting ready to watch
I
The
was the-
Conjuring.
biggest wimp growing up. I was so afraid of horror movies and scary stuff, and like even like roller coasters, like wouldn't ride them until I was like 15 years old. Like I was very afraid of things. I was not ever afraid of heights. Like catch me climbing on the roof as a 6-year-old and in the tallest tree and hanging over a cliff, but I would not watch a scary movie. And then the first time I did, it was Freddy Krueger, and I was like, I can never go to sleep again as long as I
can't do
live.
this.
Like, so it's taken me until I'm gonna be 30 next year, but I can watch scary movies now. Damn it.
Yes. No, we're just about to get ready to go through the whole Conjuring universe. Not for the new one that's coming out, but a little sneak peek. Maybe something to do with season 2.
Maybe we're gonna talk about it.
So that's the last theory. That's pretty much all we have on this. I mean, the disappearance of the 5th Norfolk Regiment remains one of World War I's most bizarre and haunting mysteries. Were they cut down and forgotten in the bureaucratic haze of trench warfare, or were they victims of friendly fire? Did the Ottomans cover up the massacre, or did they walk into a weird cloud and get abducted by aliens?
Or the Doctor in the TARDIS.
Another one for the Doctor. Put it on the board.
It could have been a cloud. The TARDIS used to be
Can take
able
the
to
shape of
take on
anything.
any shape it wanted until it got broken and stuck in the police box shape.
Yeah. But whatever did happen on August 12th, 1915, One thing is clear. Hundreds of men died, and for years, nobody could or would say how. The combination of royal involvement, mass disappearance, and a fog of contradictory reports ensures that this tale remains logged in the darker corners of military history. And that's what makes it perfect for a mystery date. So, that's the story. I've kind of already given what my conclusion is. I think it's a mix of the friendly fire and just the cover-up. I think it was a big mishap from the Brits, and they just had to go in and cover it up till they could get a story straight.
Yeah, I would buy that for sure.
Like, I think that mass grave was done by them.
Probably, and that would explain why they were buried with their weapons and their
Yes.
weapons weren't taken.
Yes. Like, I think the Brits went in, cleaned it up as soon as they could, and then sent their forces out to investigate, and...
Yeah. I'm
Now-
not sure what I believe happened, but I think that it is probably a little bit of this, a little bit of that, in all of those more reasonable explanations
Yeah.
that we talked about. Like, I'm sorry, guys. I don't think they walked into a cloud and then got sucked into the sky. They might have walked into some fog and cloud, and that's when everybody else is
Yes.
like, where'd they go? And they never saw them again. But, like, the cloud didn't eat them or abduct them. I
No.
think that either some form of, like, friendly fire and then cover up and scattering and clamoring to fix it happened, or some sort of execution or prisoner of war or just battleground thing happened. And then maybe later some civilians were coming through and they're like, you know what, let's clean this up. Let's bury these men, give them
Yeah.
a little bit of honor at least. Like, again, it was war, people. Shit was messy. Things were going on that not everybody knew about, and it wasn't always released by the government to the public. Maybe not for decades after. It's possible that maybe some government out there does know what happened to these guys.
Oh, yeah.
And they're just still waiting to release the information until it's been long enough that they're sure no more family members will come after them for retributions.
Oh, I think we're
Like,
both on
yeah,
pretty much the same page.
I think it's like one of those two.
It was a mishap of war, regardless of what it was.
Exactly.
It was not paranormal or supernatural, at least to our knowledge or what we think.
I think war is messy and tragic and shitty.
Yep.
And unfortunately, this entire battalion ended up among casualties. And yes, it was under weird circumstances and there were a lack of answers. And so it has become mysterious and interesting. But at the end of the day, I really do think that it's like, well, what happened was it was a war. And so they died. And that's about all the information you need to have.
Yeah. With that, we're going to move on to date night debrief. And the question I have for today is, what is your dream job?
My dream job is to be a national best-selling author. International best-selling author. That would be awesome if they published my books in other languages too.
That is,
I want to
I
be
wonder how many-
I want to be on the New York Times #1 bestseller list for at least a whole week once in my life.
hell yeah, we can make that happen, podcast. Come on.
Well, I got to get an agent first and then get published. But
Well,
then that
famous
book
on
is
here
out.
first.
You best believe I'll be plugging it on here for you guys.
I wonder how many internationally bestsellers there are.
There's at least a handful. I mean, I know
I just feel
several
like that's a crazy hard market to get
several
into.
of the authors I read have their books printed in at least a handful of other languages and are available in other countries.
It's cool to think about.
But most books are at least available for purchase in like US, Mexico, Canada, and UK,
Yeah.
and Australia. Most books are available internationally just because of things like Amazon and like Barnes and Noble. Like if you pay for shipping, you can get a book anywhere.
Well, yeah.
But I do think that printing wise, you'd be surprised at how many places are translating and printing and selling books.
Well, there you have it.
Reading is not dead yet, people.
No, thanks, Amazon. No, just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I mean, hey, Amazon started out as a
It was a
bookstore.
bookstore. Yeah, it did fuel it. Sorry for
No.
my feet, by the way.
Unfortunately, Kindle is like notorious for giving people like the wrong version of the book they bought, or like they'll download their Kindle book and it's like, why is half the words on this page misspelled? I don't know what goes on with Amazon books and Kindle, but like there's always something wrong if you get one of their books.
All right.
Just go to Barnes and Noble, people.
Well, there you have it.
Yeah. What's your dream job?
I would love to just not work. No, I'm kidding. It would be something probably in whether to do something to do with tech. So I'm cool even if it was building computers or producing something, whatever I'm not doing right now. I want to produce this podcast. That's my dream job.
Yeah. I
Truly.
mean, yeah, end of the day, my real dream job is just to follow my creative endeavors while not having to
Work a 9 to 5.
work a 9 to 5 in order to keep a roof over my head and food in my belly. I would love it if only writing, doing the podcast, and doing photography for couples and clients that I want to service was enough. And one day it will be.
All right. Well, our camera's about to die, so I'm going to try to get this outro here.
All right.
Yeah, that's it. Just
Yep. Get you guys on the flip.
No, but thank you guys so much for joining us, and be sure to come back every other week for a brand new mystery and a brand new date.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's story and mystery. And be sure to email us your love letters, your opinions, your episode ideas. If you do send us an episode idea, please put it in the subject line so we can find it easily. And follow us on social media too while you're at it, at Mystery Date Podcast,
What's our Gmail?
mysterydatepodcast@gmail.com.
Perfect. Beautiful. We also want to hear your spooky stories and real life mysteries that you've experienced. So head over to our website, mysterydatepodcast.com, to where you can leave us a voice message or just send us a little text message of some mysteries that you have going on in your own personal life. We want to hear about that stuff.
You might even get your voice message played on the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. And be sure to share this podcast with your friends or even your enemies. We're not going to judge, but it helps a lot when you guys hit like or when you share or when you comment. All of that stuff boosts us in the algorithm, gets more eyes watching us, which helps out in the long run. So we appreciate it. So that's all. So be safe and have a great rest of your day or night.
And remember, every good mystery deserves a date. Bye.
Bye.